Dad used to say that childhood was like being drunk. Everyone remembers what you did, except you.
Thank you, Adam, for introducing the world and me to the glorious Grace Pudel and her claymation world in the exceptional memoirs of a snail.
Thank you. No, I'm so glad I'm finally here in England, and I've been all around the world promoting the film, and being half Scottish, it's nice to finally come back to the homeland.
Ah, have you been to the to Edinburgh? We've got a cinema there called the Cameo, which is definitely worth a
Oh
visit.
yes, of course. Yeah, I went there for the Edinburgh Film Festival back in 2016, I think.
That would be right. Yeah. So this is the second feature in your trilogy of trilogies. That's three shorts, three long shorts, and three features. Can you tell me about this setup? Was it something that you felt that you had to map out for your working life in a way so it might seem manageable or doable when working in the painstaking, universe creating claymation stop motion art form?
Well, look, it was a pretty pretentious, stupid thing I came up with when I was at film school back in 1996. I said I'm going to dedicate my life to making 9 films, just like Quentin Tarantino wants to make 10, and yeah, never thinking it would actually manifest. But here I am, all these years later, and as you say, I've done 7 of the 9, and so I've only got a feature and a long short to go, and then I can die.
So it's proved quite a good working structure, despite being, as you say, pretentious, but I didn't think it was.
No, well, look, it certainly has given my life a lot of structure, and when you set yourself these 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 tasks, you sort of then have to sort of stick to them, I suppose. But I've been very lucky too that I've been able to make my films back to back. There's been gaps between them, but I've never done an ad or a series or anything other than really my films. I mean, I draw and I have little exhibitions and things, but yeah, my life really has been mostly devoted to plasticine.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, it seems like you have a lot of support. Like, I was looking at the Melbourne film industry, and in 2003 you won an Oscar for Harvey Crumpet, and I wondered, did that mean that you could spend the rest of your life as you've intended, or was that already in motion? Do you have lots of support in place?
Yeah, well, luckily in Australia, we have a lot of government support for the film industry. I mean, it's still very competitive, and not many films get made. But because I'm an auteur, because my films are very Australian in their narratives, because they're quirky, they're universal, they do well at festivals, and they make it to the cinema, which is hard in itself. So yeah, I'm one of the lucky few. But also too, I do work with big name actors, and that always helps sell the films and get people to come and see them. But also, I'm very, obsessed by what I do. I'm very dedicated to the art form, and it has taken over my life. And sadly, there's not much time for anything else.
My twin brother, Gilbert, we had two souls but one heart.
Look, Gracie.
Rabbit face, rabbit face, rabbit face.
Why are you dressed like an ant?
No, I'm a snail.
Oh, funny.
You describe your films as clayographies, and I wonder if you can tell me what this means to you and what it is to build a clayographic world. Is it always from scratch, or do you have a universe in a plane hangar that you can go and visit? Yeah, tell me about your world.
Sure. Well, again, another pretentious idea of mine was to come up with a word that described what I wanted to do, because there really wasn't anything that was out there that described what I wanted to sort of do with my stories. And there was a lot of animation at the time in plasticine that was for kids, and of course, all the wonderful Wallace and Gromit's and Gumby and all that. But there wasn't much in the form of content that was for adults, that was biographical, autobiographical, in black and white. So really, I really wanted to invent my own sort of form and I wouldn't say genre, but style of filmmaking that was unique and different. And I love telling stories about my family and friends. I have a lot of eccentric friends, a lot of colourful people in my life, and they've all led interesting lives. Some of them have had a lot of misfortune and bad luck, and so I like telling those aspects of their life as well. And I really ultimately just trying to make films that are both comic and tragic, light and dark. I love that duality of comedy, tragedy, and just about everyday people who have, in some ways, have led extraordinary lives. And I'm not interested in talking animals or superheroes. My characters are just everyday people.
And the film is dedicated to your mum, Valerie, mild hoarder in brackets. But I read that it's a bit of a family trait. Hoarding is such an interesting human phenomenon. Can you tell me how the story unfolded for you and what it was that caught your eye about hoarding?
Sure. Well, yes. My dad, who passed away about 8 years ago, was a bit of a collector. We don't really use the word hoarding, but he was on the cusp, I'd say. He left behind 3 garages full of things. Mum's still a hoarder. And actually, this morning, my mum emailed saying, "Can we bring back a whole lot of souvenirs from London?" Not even being specific, just things she can cram in her cupboards at home. So, you know, and of course, my parents aren't the odd ones out. I mean, lots of families have hoarders in them. We all collect things we don't need. It's really, when does this collecting become a problem? When does it become dysfunctional to your life? And that's what I got really interested in, was extreme collecting or hoarding. And sadly, what I discovered was extreme hoarders have more often than not had a lot of loss and trauma in their lives, the loss of a child, a sibling, or a twin, and that the hoarding becomes this sort of coping mechanism to deal with all this pain and loss. And the hoard becomes sort of a buffer and a protection from the outside world. And a lot of extreme hoarders have very sad lives, are very ashamed. Shame is a big component of hoarding. So yeah, that really began to fascinate me. And I spoke to psychologists and read a lot of books. And it's something I'm still fascinated in, is why, as human beings, do we fill our homes full of things we don't need?
It's very interesting. And you so lovingly and carefully unpeel Gracie's world for us so that we can get some kind of sense of empathy and compassion for people that do this thing. And so tell me about Grace. Like, where did she arrive in your mind? When did you first meet her? Was it pondering a hair lip, or did you have the essence of her somewhere?
Yeah, well, she's sort of based on a friend of mine who was born with a cleft palate, who as a little girl had a lot of operations on her mouth, and was bullied and teased a lot at school, yet grew up to be a very confident adult, quite an extrovert, first person to take their clothes off at a party. She was very colourful and still is, and is a very happy, confident person, and yet had this very traumatic childhood. So I was interested in that transformation. How did she do it? How did she get that confidence? So that was the basis for Grace, for sure. But there's a lot of myself in Grace. There's bits of my mother. She certainly is an amalgamation. And she's a very real person to me. Even when I wrote the script, I always imagined her as a real person. I never sort of start drawing the characters until after the script's locked off. And I treat my characters with a lot of respect, and there's a lot of sincerity there, because I want to present their lives in a very authentic fashion. I don't want to exploit them or make fun of them. And I think that's why the films work, is that people can relate to their characters. They see themselves or somebody they know. And it's all about empathy. It's getting the audience to put themselves in my character's shoes and see what it's like to be them. And that's hard to do because they're blobs of clay. And our job as filmmakers is to convince the audience that these blobs of clay have a soul and a heartbeat and are alive.
Well, surely that is really basically all we are anyway, but that's for another conversation.
I believed in glasses half full and silver linings. Life was fleeting, but so precious.
Bravo!
Aww, now she's got a boyfriend.
So tell me about bringing the perfect casting of Sarah Snook on board. I mean, her pitch perfect voice and lilt was just sublime.
Oh, look, she's wonderful, as we all know, and luckily she lives in Melbourne where I live, and connecting with her was relatively easy. The timing was great because she was finishing off Succession and about to start on A Picture of Dorian Gray, so there was a window there, and so we spent time together talking about Grace and ways of her delivering the lines, whether it was putting on a voice, and we didn't decided no, I wanted a very authentic, natural sounding voice and a quietness. We decided that really Grace is just talking quietly to Sylvia the snail in the pity pit, and we brought in one of the plasticine snails for Sarah to talk to, and that's how we got that beautiful intimacy and
Oh,
authenticity. Yeah,
lovely.
yeah. So she was wonderful, and similarly Cody and Jackie was a delight to work with. She just was herself. She didn't even have to act, you know.
Oh,
She's an
well,
incredible actor. She really took it seriously. Actually, all the actors just treated this film like it was a live action film, and it was striving for really high quality performances that were visceral and palpable and real. I think is what we're after, was a
oh,
realness.
I mean, I wonder, do people come up to you after the film and want to tell you about the people that they related to? I mean, I certainly want to tell you about my Pinky in my life. You know, do people want
Yeah.
to do that to you? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And after Q&As, I get a lot of people come up who say, particularly Grace really resonates with them, but that they have a Pinky in their life. And I think we also get a lot of people who want to be Pinky because Pinky's such a free spirit. She doesn't care what people think. She's happy just to be her true self. And I think that's what we all want to be as we get older is be our authentic selves.
And it's so rarely portrayed in cinema. I mean, I was thinking, you know, like Maud, I think in Harold and Maude was the
Oh yeah.
closest that I would come to meeting, having met a Pinky in cinema before, really. And I just think that the script for Pinky, I mean, when she says I look like a testicle, I don't think I'll ever think of that as anything other than completely endearing.
Yeah, look, that line gets the biggest laugh in every country all around the world. But yeah, I mean, certainly characters like Maud, it's one of my favorite films, Harold and Maude.
Mm.
Even, people like Iris Apfel, who's a, fashionista in New York, famous for her big red
Oh,
glasses.
yes.
But also I've got friends, there's one friend of mine, elderly friend, Nancy Phelps, who's an animation enthusiast. I met her many years ago, and she was telling me how she once played ping pong with Fidel Castro. And I said, "You're kidding." And so she told me this big story, and I wrote that down and, of course, put that in the film. And she also was one of the people who set up the Burning Man Festival. So, I keep meeting these interesting people who've led extraordinary lives. And I mean, I just steal. That's the thing. I just steal all these ideas from get these ideas from people's lives and put them in my work.
And I have to tell you that I found myself singing the theme songs to Sons and Daughters and Prisoner Cell Block H for the first time in 40 years. Because the
Yeah.
aesthetic was just so perfect.
Yeah, look, I love I love music that's very evocative and yeah, I mean there's so much music in this film too. And we have
Oh,
a wonderful composer, Elena Katsachernin, who composed everything from scratch. And I think the film is driven in many ways by the music. Yeah.
Life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forwards.
Say cheese, Gracie.
I watched the credits all the way through because I just wanted to enjoy every single creation. And I understand from my colleague Lucy, who worked at the Nova in Melbourne, is that right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that they've got a display on there of all the creations. Is that right? Is that happening at the moment?
Yeah, we turned the cafe the Nova turned the cafe into Pinky's cocktail bar, and they took a lot of the wallpapers from the film. A whole lot of the books are in there, and then in cabinets are a lot of the props and sets. So, yeah, so the people could come and see the film, but also then spend time immersed in that world. And I think it's just finishing up now, but I think it went for 16 weeks or something.
Oh,
So,
fantastic. Well, I
yeah.
know we have listeners in Australia, one of them being my cousin who lives in Woodend, which is where Sarah
Oh,
Smith is
yes.
from.
Yeah. She lives around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see on Instagram that Gracie is already embracing the world of the red carpet. She's photographed at festivals with Selena Gomez and Angelina Jolie. How is she coping with the adulation?
Well, she's a bit grubby, to be honest. She needs a good disinfectant. She's been held by everybody, as you say, Angelina and Selena, and a few weeks ago at the Golden Globes, she went on the red carpet and she met Harrison Ford and Kyle MacLachlan and all sorts of famous celebrities and actors. And yeah, look, she normally I don't travel with any of the puppets, but for this film, the publicity team wanted me to bring Grace along to one of the red carpets, and it just drew so much attention to the film. So yeah, she goes everywhere with me now. She's like a lucky chuck, a good luck charm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if you could finish, we've got to wrap up now, by the incredible score, which I love that you described as fecund and nourishing, and your incredible cinematography. There are just a couple of reasons to see this in the cinema. I wonder if you could give us a big, why must people go to the cinema to see this film?
Well, look, we made this for the big screen. It's in 5.1 surround sound, so it sounds magnificent. It's all encompassing, and because the film is driven by narration too, there's a wonderful intimacy that works better in a big screen environment. But also too, it's a comedy, and I think comedy works better when there's 300 other people sitting with you in the audience. Laughter is infectious. And also you get to see all the detail that we put into the 5 to 7,000 props, 200 characters, 200 sets. It's a very lush film, a very dense film, and really it's like a big giant sickly cake. It really something. And also too, if you're not an emotional wreck by the end of the film, then I've failed, and I really want the audience to come out of the cinema utterly exhausted, but with a big smile on their face.
Well, yeah, I was wrung out. And I hope you take that as a compliment. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Adam Elliot. It's been such a treat speaking with you. Good luck with the film.
My pleasure. Thanks, Felicity. Bye.
Bye-bye.
As soon as I'm old enough and got money, I'm coming to get you.
Childhood was life's best season. It never lasts, but everyone deserves one. I remember everything.
Thank you for watching Picturehouse Cinema's unique video content. Hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with our movie news, cast and crew interviews, highlights, trailers, and lots more.